best. Our new administration's cry is to just defund the Department of Education. And a lot of people agree with this. They think the schools are not doing well, they're not performing, literacy is declining, schools are wasting our tax dollars. Let's defund the whole thing. Isn't it crazy how you all say that when an entity that is supposed to be serving the public isn't doing that, their funds should be reallocated and removed? I feel like we might have said that about another public service, but just can't quite put my finger on it. Anyway, now let's discuss what that really means. Defunding the Department of Education essentially means decentralization. Decentralization is the transfer of control of an activity or organization to several local offices or authorities instead of at one single one. So what this would look like in education is basically, instead of there being a national department that monitors education legislation and how money is distributed, instead local states would control their own education initiatives, legislation, and funding. Hence, we have the states' rights comparisons from the Civil War. This would be a nightmare situation for states with smaller GDP. What that means is that states that don't make a lot of money because they don't have a lot of economic output, it would be very hard for them to sustain their own states. Smaller states with less resources benefit from that because they're able to benefit from the whole pool of resources. That funding goes to their buildings, transportation, hiring teachers. And larger states who have larger economic output like New York, California, they can afford to run on their own because their states make so much money. But states that don't have a lot of economic output, they would struggle. So let's talk about what would be some of the things that would happen if the Department of Education decides to decentralize or shut down. If every state runs their own education department, each state's legislation could be different. So that means that the protection for students from state to state could differ. So without that federal funding, state and local governments would be kind of forced to take on the entire responsibility for funding education. And a large part of the education budget is to support our kiddos with disabilities, our kiddos who are coming from low income environments. And that funding kind of helps to level the playing field for those kids. But if the department is defunded, those areas that serve those students or those areas that are low income would be hit the hardest. And understand that's not just urban areas, that's rural areas as well. Also,